Any move, but because your background is so consistent, it's kind of not seen.
Yeah, well, I'm also got it at a short throw. It's going back and forth only to like that much because I didn't want to make it look too jarring when I was doing this test. But yeah, it's doing a great job in going back and forth. And if I speed it up, you'll see the difference as we're going. So
You are slightly cutting off the top of your head, Jeffrey, just to let you know.
I've been playing with that. For some reason, it keeps going back and forth. I might have to still tie down something on the camera. It might be falling forward or something.
Yeah, it was tough for me to find a
All
really
right.
tiny ball head that I could.
Let's get this thing started.
Oh,
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Office Hours. Good to have you here on a Thanksgiving morning. Hasn't slowed us down at all. We still got a full panel. Still have a lot of people here to chat. So it's kind of fun. I was kind of curious to see. This is our first Thanksgiving together. So I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to turn out. And it's turned out well. If you are in YouTube, you can join Zoom to actually join the conversation. If you're in Zoom, you can join Mukana to actually join the conversation. And so hopefully you'll see the links down there in the chat. If you're wondering how all these folks showed up in this panel, they got here early. We keep on opening earlier, so it's a little experiment that we're doing. And so we opened it before 6. You don't have to be here by then. If you want to be in the panel, you have to be here by 6:40. And I would be here by 6:40. I let it slide a little bit for a while, but we're going to tighten that back up because we have more people showing up. So be here by 6:40. If you want to be part of the panel, you just need to look good, sound good, have good internet, and you'll be good to go. One announcement is that tomorrow we are going to experiment with opening much earlier for folks. Now, this is if people feel like doing it at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or 11 p.m. in Australia, or whatever we have here. We are going to open up. We're going to open up. And it's going to be in a meeting. So in the email that you all got earlier, you should have gotten a link to that meeting. Someone else can post in Mukana that link. You just go grab it. There's a registration link. You need to register for it. Now, what we're going to do there is, I have no idea if this is going to work. This is based on a past experiment where to be honest, we were trying to figure out how meetings and breakout rooms worked. We don't really do a lot of meetings, and a client asked for that. And so we were like, okay, well, we got to figure it out, and we need a bunch of people. And a whole bunch of people here jumped right into it right after one of our office hours. And I just found it to be fascinating. So I bounced around. I was jumping from room to room, and there were all these little conversations and all these people I never see. And so we're going to experiment. We know that breakout rooms are coming to webinars, and I've just gotten impatient. So I've decided we'll just do this we'll do it for 3 days. If it doesn't turn out well or something goes horribly wrong, we won't do it anymore. So I'm not promising it past Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we're going to open up these rooms, and we'll create a bunch of rooms for people, and you can just wander around and talk to each other. We're not going to, and then what's going to happen is we're going to close that at at 5:55 and move everybody into the webinar. Well, actually, we'll close it at 5:45, and then you can come into the webinar. So that everyone has a little bit of time to warm up. So just something new and different that we're going to try. We've been discussing having the idea of having a kind of free roaming rooms both before and after office hours for the folks that have the time to do that, where people can kind of chat more freely and not necessarily be part of the broadcast and so on and so forth. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in it. Just want to make sure that you know it's going to happen. And finally, the questions. We've got a lot of questions coming in, but we can't have enough. We've got 2 hours to cover. We're doing general Q&A this week, except for Saturday, which we'll still do focus on education. So get those questions in. And the best thing to do is to think about them all day. So just think about those questions all day. If you have questions coming up, write them down. You will forget. This is a general thing for all things, is have a notepad, or I have notes opened almost all day. And I'm constantly throwing things in there that I'm trying to keep track of because notes get shared between all my Apple devices. And so I'm able to, keep track of those notes, and things I don't quite understand, things I have to go study, things I have to figure out, things I have to get done. Those all go into my little notes sections. And so that's what you can do. You can have a little section in notes or a notepad or wherever you want to put it. and of things that you should ask at office hours, and then bring it in here. And we depend on you to do that. I do have the beginnings of an unboxing for all of you. Do you guys want to see? You guys want to see what I got?
Yes.
Let's see what I got. Okay. I realize I've never done unboxings ever, so this is kind of new.
Place your
very
bets,
exciting.
kids. It's Black Magic Box.
No, it's an Apple box. I got one. Here it is.
How much
So-
RAM, Alex?
8 gigs. For what I need, it's going to be great. So I'm testing these specifically as Zoom controllers. So the only thing they have to be good at. See, this isn't very good. I need multiple cameras. So there's a little Mac Mini, and what's amazing is it looks pretty much like the old Mac Mini. So here is the. There's nothing much to it. I just pulled it out. I literally just pulled it out right now, so it's got little plastic still on it. So I will be talking. I'm testing this today for what we're doing, and if it works, I'm going to buy another 11 of them tomorrow. So anyway, I gotta test it quickly because we need a whole bunch of kits built. But we're looking at running our kits with these. So the idea is the old Mac Minis were not fast enough. The GPU was a mess. They were good for what we used them for, but they weren't good for actually doing work. This we think, is going to be fast enough to do work. From reports that you guys have given us. Go ahead.
Does it have the new Mac smell?
I don't know. Is there a new Mac smell? Let's see.
Sure.
Hold on.
Of course it does.
Yeah, it does. It does. It smells like it has that little plasticky smell that this wrapper tends to have with everything. You're right. It does have a little bit of smell, and I think it comes with. Oh, I almost lost. That's part of the Apple comes with.
You gotta have the sticker.
You gotta have your stickers. Yeah, don't
So
ever
it doesn't
throw
smell
don't ever throw the
fruity?
card away. The stickers. There's no cookie. That would be really cool if they had an Apple cookie. Anyway,
Fruity.
so what we'll do is what I'm going to do with this is to kind of run through its paces. So obviously, I'm going to run Zoom on it. That's the only thing it has to do for this mission. But since I have one, I'm also going to put Final Cut on it and Resolve and put a bunch of other things. See, I'm going to put Meta. I'm going to put in what we call the Widowmaker Meta shape thing that literally maxed out Justin Ezerick's Mac Pro and just see how he does. So anyway, so that's going to be. We'll have more reports over the weekend as I put it through its paces. But the only thing I have to do today is make sure Zoom works. But we'll keep on pushing it and seeing. I'm really thought about it, and I'm pretty excited about that direction because I don't know how we would be able to get this solution without somebody who makes the only thing that generates the code, being Xcode, makes the operating system that it runs on, makes the hardware that operating system runs on. All those things together is a pretty interesting compile. So we'll see how that. I think that we could end up in a pretty fun place. Anyway, just thought I'd share. We'll talk about more later. Go ahead, Jason.
Point of order, it's super important, just so you know, to update it. And the update itself actually takes surprisingly long. So if you need to do a fast test, plug it in immediately. And I would really, having had the 16 gigabyte RAM one for several days now, I strongly suggest send me the Widowmaker and I'll give you AB.
Yeah, that's good. I will. I don't even know if it'll run it. So that is the one place that I don't think it'll run very well because I know that the Widowmaker takes 64 gigs of RAM and just eats it all up. So this is the one place where I don't think it will. And by the way, I'll post I owe John the John Pruitt the thing for his Mac, and I'll post those images. They're not. I'll put it up so that you can all download it and test it on your computers. It'd be kind of fun for all of us to play with it. I'm not going to put it out publicly, but I'll put it out for this group. Don't start sharing the link to everyone. Anyway, but I'll put it out for this group, and you guys can download it. It's a series of 192 photos I took in India. There's a place in the spice market in Old Delhi that has a square that's inside of a square, so you can actually walk around the entire square and take pictures. And so I took it with my iPhone, and then I rented a camera, 5D or whatever, and took another set of photos. And those photos, if you put it in as RAW into my iMac, I know that my iMac at 100% capacity for 3 days and then crash. I've never actually been able to, at full resolution, at full quality, my iMac is incapable of finding a solution. So it's a good one to test. And then when Justine Ezerick said she couldn't find a way to totally max out her Mac Pro that she had for testing, I sent her something that did. So anyway, So anyway, that didn't get a solution either, in case you're wondering. CPUs are not built to run for 3 days at maximum capacity. Anyway, so we're going to see how the M1 does. All right, that's it.
You may be on Wi-Fi, sir.
I'm not on Wi-Fi,
Interesting.
but my microwave has been having some issues, and that's my wired connection. So it could be that. So we have a growing family of turkey vultures. I think I told you, and the problem is the antenna is very close to where the turkey vultures sit on my roof. They sit there and they kind of peer out looking for dead things, and or things that look like they're going to be dead. Like if we go swimming, they go very slowly over the pond, going, well, they're not dead yet, And so they do. They just got a long line of them, just keeps them going over, thinking that eventually we're going to drown. Anyway, so the chicks are actually hatched right under the garage, and so that the numbers keep on getting bigger in our little area, which I kind of enjoy. So I'm not pushing them off. I kind of enjoy having them around, but I think that they're actually in the mornings they're causing some transmission issues, because I think in the morning they're having their morning tea and coffee and up there right next to the microwave, and when they open up their wings, I think they're causing some transmission issues. So I'm working on solutions that don't include moving them, just include me figuring out how to live with them.
I keep learning new words. I mean, skosh and skein, and
Yeah.
now we got turkey vulture glitches.
Management. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so let's go to the first question.
We are diving into the big one for today because it is Thanksgiving in America, and I think in some other countries nearby. John Pruitt, Huntersville. Panel, what are you thankful for?
I'm going to jump out first because I know that some people are going to say it. I just want to say it first. I'm really thankful for this group. I really missed what I had with the Pixel Core. When I built this huge group, I had 2,000 people in 40 countries, and every day we were all talking about stuff, and it wasn't nearly as good as this because it was all on an online forum, and we barely got to see each other, and it wasn't as real time, and it wasn't nearly as intense as this. But when I went back into production, just because I hadn't figured out how to make a business model out of it, my company got off the ground because the Pixel Core existed, because I knew all these people all over the world that could do production. And then it kind of faded away because I just had to work a lot, incredible hours for a decade. And so when this started, I just didn't even know what to think of it. I didn't know what. I figured, we'll try this for a couple of weeks. It's when we created Discord is when I knew that there was no turning back. And everyone jumped into it, and there was this incredible, but I. Again, I say this on Sundays pretty often. I say it on other days. It is completely effortless for me to get up every morning, hang out with all of you, and I learn so much every day. It's not, I love the fact that I was able to be the fad, the floating attraction device that got you all here. But I'm just, the power of what we're doing here is the group. It is what all of you contribute to it, the excitement and the knowledge and the interest and the quandary and all the things that are there. I've never seen a community that is so driven by the community, like that the value in it is not any one person or any one thing. It is the whole is truly greater than than any individual part, and I just think that that's an amazing thing. And I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to, I don't like, this is and so when I move slowly, just so you know, it's because a lot of people want to do a lot of things. They think we should do this and we should that, and I want to do a lot of things. We kind of have a lot of bigger visions for what we could do, but I move very slowly. And the reason I move it slowly is because I just think that this is a fragile little flower. I mean, it's just like this tiny little plant, and I just don't want to break it. I don't want to kill the plant by adding too much water, giving it too much sun, moving it around too much. I just don't, because I will say that a friend of mine was talking to Charlie DeMello about her, she's got 100 million followers on TikTok, and they, why do you keep dancing? She goes, I don't know why this is working. Like she literally told him, like, I don't know why this is working. I'm just going to keep doing it. So I kind of feel like that, like, I don't know, like I have ideas of what makes this work and what doesn't make it work. And we'll slowly move through it. But it's such a pleasure to be in as it is, that I just want it to grow at the pace that it grows at, and not have it be, not do something sudden that would damage it. and so anyway, so if you want to know why I move so slowly, it's because I'm having so much fun, and it's just such a great thing. So I'm thankful for all of you, and thankful for that I'm on a Thanksgiving morning. And all of you showed up, it's like, and people are here because it makes a difference for us, and it makes a difference because of all of you, and I feel that it was anyway. So I just feel very fortunate for all of you. So anyway, go ahead, Jason, and then John.
Yeah, I'm going to say that same thing second, but much more quickly. A gestalt is a group that is greater than the sum of its parts, as a noun, I think. And that's exactly what this group has been to me. It is, as far as I'm concerned, the thing that keeps me sane and reminds me that I'm on the right track and doing the right thing, despite the insanity of 2020. And that by itself is extremely valuable. Second, is anyone who works in healthcare. I'm insanely grateful to you.
Yeah, absolutely. John?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm thankful for friends, which I'm privileged to count you guys among them. And the other thing is, I'm very privileged to have and feel very thankful for a job that allows me to pay my bills without being stressed, and I'm able to work from home so I don't have to risk exposure. And in these days, I just spent $300 without thinking of it buying that damn slider. Excuse my language. But that's a privilege, and we need to be appreciative of that.
Absolutely. Bill, and then Peter.
This is, and what I'm thankful for is community, and this whole thing, 2020, I think as a year has redefined that for me, because I thought it was one thing, and it turns out it's much bigger than that, and communities form ad hoc like this one. And in that same spirit, I just wanted to send out a message that we all know how many people are food insecure this year, particularly with all this disruption. So if there's anything you can do locally, if you're doing okay, please pitch in to the people who are helping the broadest possible selection of people who are having trouble getting food on the table this Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Peter?
Early on, when this started, I had a lot of issues being locked down in New Zealand. We were heavily locked down. You couldn't even go outside, really. And even if I wasn't on the panel, just watching you guys having something to take my mind off everything, and then having my illness during the year and being welcomed back again. And it's just almost like a family, I guess. And I jokingly said at the start of 2020, because of the old saying that hindsight is 2020 vision. I said, well, I'm not going to let 2020 be the year of hindsight. And it's turned out to be one of those years, hasn't it? So I really enjoy listening to you. I'm like a sponge getting all your knowledge. And yeah, it's just been awesome. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. And Paul?
Yeah, I'm very thankful just to keep on living because these times we're in. And I'm thankful for the people who rent trailers and RVs and rooms for me out in my little fishing village out in Bastrop. And I'm thankful for my wife who's been working nonstop around the clock, baking pies and making a turkey and all of that stuff. And we live a comfortable life in very tough times. And I'm very grateful to get through these times.
Thank you. And George and Sky?
Definitely, again, thankful for the office hours crew. I mean, when this thing started, a lot of us were already in production, but office hours definitely helped us propel things that we wanted to do or needed to do to be able to get to this point where we've been able to, I don't want to say survive, but a lot of us survived and still survive in this pandemic or just everything that's going on right now. So definitely giving thanks for, just the human race, everyone that's here across the globe that's contributed. You definitely helped, me as a business, as a person, continue doing what I needed to do.
Absolutely. Sky?
247 days. Mike Andrews is a friend who's passed. Benjamin yesterday showed up as a new friend. So we have seen life, as Paul talks about, come and go, and we've now shared 247 days together, some of us. And so the fun of being a community, when you said that, Alex, when you again course corrected me, didn't push back, but you pushed forward with the idea of, oh, no. Community is king. Content is the honey that brings us together. So that content we continue to share and grow and will never be finished is a joy, because I've had the unfortunate circumstance, well, no, maybe it was fortunate, of being on the ground at certain what were called disasters and saw the best of humanity show up, and that you have allowed us to continue to grow and get better and make mistakes, and that created a safe space. Alex, I am thankful for you for allowing us to love into one another in a very once in a lifetime circumstance. I'm grateful.
And the thing is that it's the community is driven because of who showed up, because of who stayed, and really who stayed. There's a lot of people that show up. They hear about this and they showed up, and but there's a certain number of people who have stayed, and that's what's formed this community. That's why we're so close, is because we respect each other. We respect the process. We respect the group that we're in part of. And admittedly, I make it hard, to join different steps. You have to get here early to be in the Discord, and you have to, I don't make it particularly easy to do all the little bits and pieces. And it's because I want people who, the people who have made it through, who show up all the time, who feel part of this community, have earned it. And they've and those speed bumps. I mean, I think a lot of people have this thing, like they just want as many people as they possibly can, and how big is their community? And I don't want to know how big my community is. I want to know what the quality of it is. And I just think that the quality of this community is amazing. That's just a really the people who have stayed and that are part of this community every day, in the attendees, in the panel, in Discord. It's quite a thing, because other people have passed through. This wasn't the right thing for them, and that's great. What we want to do is keep people passing through, and have, out of every 50 of them, 3 or 4 of them stay. Like, oh, this is my little space. Hosmuk and then Stuart.
Yeah, they say that all the success in the world does not make up for failure at home. So I'm very thankful for a successful family. I have my son is a doctor, my daughter-in-law is a doctor, and they're all in the medical field. So I'm very thankful that they have remained healthy and been able to contribute in this very difficult period. I did mention before that I've had many career changes, and things have found me rather than me looking for it. And I think office hours found me, but it's been a tsunami. It's been the biggest thing that I have crashed into. And I've never known where this is going to lead to, but I have had this ability to figure out, kind of sixth sense, that this is going to lead somewhere. And I often don't know where it's leading. So I'm busy with what I'm doing, but I can almost figure out that this is something that's going to go the future. That's the next step. I'm turning 70 next year, and I can't believe that I'm doing what I'm doing right now. And I think I can do it for another 10 years. And what Office Hours has done is it's made me younger. It made me much younger than I should be. So it's so important to me with this community, because we always have a view of different countries, and I know the majority of the people on the panel are from the North Continent, but the manner in which all of us have been embraced internationally and globally, just welcomed into your families, and the way you have effortlessly assisted us come to the party when we really need you. So guys and Alex, thank you so much.
Thank you. Stuart?
We don't actually celebrate Thanksgiving, but in the spirit of the day, I'm thankful for simple things like the sound of rain on a window, or the feel of a sunset on your face. And the important things, such as being accepted and tolerated in a group like this of peers who become friends.
Thanks, Stuart. Laura?
I want to echo what everybody has said here because I feel like when I first came to the panel, I was terrified. Alex and I had a couple chat conversations back and forth prior to me joining the panel. And I just want to thank everybody because this is not my industry. This is not my first wealth of knowledge, but it has augmented what I do so much. And I kind of came into it with the idea of, yeah, I'm going to suck this dry and figure out what I need to know. But it has become a family. You know, as I sit here on Thanksgiving Day and I'm looking forward towards my Christmas holiday, I know that I've got somewhere to come every day to, you know, not only increase my skills, but to be with people I really have started to care about. And it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate each and every one of you. And I know at any time I have a problem, I can go into Discord, I can reach out, I can assist where the limited bit that I'm possible. But I've actually seen some of this go. I'm in a group with a YouTube and a Facebook group with another creator, and I've been able to take some of the stuff we've done here and actually assist this person, which was never my intent, and it's amazing to see how things grow. Thank you, Alex, for starting it, and thank you, group, for being here and embracing somebody that isn't as technically minded as you guys are, and increase the learning curve for us.
I was struck by the power of this group when we were having issues with we were setting up something in LA last week. And we were like, you know, we can't get people connected to the Unity. We're trying to tie Unity into Dante, and there's all this bit, you know, we've got these studio technology boxes, and we're trying to figure it all out. I was like, oh, I got somebody, and I pinged Tucker, and half an hour later, I have a full comm system, like full comm system with everybody's names and everything else. I go, oh, can you add one more person? Boom, it's there, and you can sense that the folks around me were like, who are these guys? Like suddenly, like the whole thing just turns on. But that's the power of what's happening, is that people are learning stuff in here, and then we're all resources to each other, you know. And there's this, and I do think that we're going to change the world. I mean, I really think that if you look at what Hosmic's doing, and what what Grant's doing, and what everyone here is doing, where they're touching all these people, and all of you, what Laura and Jason and John and all these other folks are, you know, and Sky's doing the cooking and everything else, and we are all of us are touching all these places. It's that 6 degrees of separation. There's this little group of people here is connected to an enormous part of the world, and the changes that we're making, you know, are changing everything, because media accelerates everything. Media accelerates all businesses, you know, because it accelerates communication, you know. And so what we're figuring out is not how to make 3D or how to make video, but it's how to move the world forward, you know, like, you know. And that's the power, and you know, we can't do it without each other. Mickey, and then Peter.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
far,
we're gonna do this. Mickey, everybody come off.
No.
Hip,
Sky. Suppress yourself. Just let Mickey do a thing. Just hold on a second. Okay, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, what was I gonna say? Yeah, I think like so far this year, what I'm most thankful for, of course, is that myself and my family have, you know, so far been, you know, we're good, we're healthy, we're safe. And I have a lot of people in the medical field as well, and in my family. So the fact that the situation specifically here in the Philippines isn't great, and the fact that, you know, they have been, you know, I've lost relatives, distant relatives to the virus, but at least my immediate family so far is good and safe. But with office hours, I think I mentioned like a long time ago, like at the first few months of the pandemic, where I didn't have anything going on, like it was an escape. It was something to look forward to, like for me, like every night, or early on, we did a couple of sessions in the morning as well, like morning my time, evening your time. And yeah, it was something to, you know, look forward to every day. Like I have something to do. I have something that I'm gonna figure out how to make like a jury rig lighting setup just so that I can start to look better. And what do you call this? And also like on the a professional side of things, like I think it's really hard to judge oneself, but I think with what I was doing work wise, I may have started to get jaded just because so much of my work has been repetitive, and it's so nice to be surrounded by people who are so passionate about learning new things, and it's so, it kind of pushes it kind of pushes me to also like, hey, like these new things are quite exciting and I want to learn it as well. So it's a nice like refresh in a way, in terms of the professional aspect.
It's one of the things that I noticed in the Pixel Core that was really powerful that I'm seeing here as well, is that for people who are experienced, the excitement of new people learning how to do this for the first time makes their job more fun. There's something about it where they get to contribute to folks that are just getting started and explain it to folks, and see people that are excited, and they go back to their jobs more excited about what they do because of the excitement because when you're around a bunch of people in production, you tend to get, a lot of it becomes like, the water cooler things tends to be complaining about the job and complaining about the stuff. And so there's this like, you forget how magical what we do is, that you're just creating these incredible soundscapes and images and everything else. And you just kind of like, oh my gosh, the coffee stinks again. And I got a last minute thing and I had to pull an all-nighter last week. And, there's all these things. And so the thing is, I think that new folks, the new blood that comes into this process gets us excited, as people who are experienced, and then of course, what the experienced folks do is bring all this knowledge to the new folks. And there's that interaction that I just don't see, that I saw in the Pixel Core that I'm seeing here, of that, where the experienced folks are getting a lot of, they're getting something out of it as far as excitement about their job in a new way. And then for the new folks, of course, they're drinking out of the fire hose that is this panel. So anyway, go ahead, Peter.
Well, I'm going to first of all agree with Hausmuth, because I am very grateful for my 3 children and my 6 soon to be 7 grandchildren. So I will first of all start off there. That is key. But I'm very thankful for this group. If somebody had said to me, and by the way, I'm also thankful for Mac Break Weekly, because that's where I heard about this group. Is if somebody had said to me at this time last year that I would be running Boy Scout training sessions across 13 time zones electronically, I would have said, no, we get everyone in one place and we run the meeting. No, we're not doing that this way, and being part of this group, again, this is not my profession. It is a volunteer passion that I've had for 50 years. I just find this whole it's helped me up my game. And I think some of you recognize that I've tried to up my game in terms of how I present myself on camera. I still have trouble looking up and down because I keep having to practice that. But this group has been great, and I really enjoy listening to some of the professional stories as well, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So. Thanks, Peter. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I try to practice this exercise every day. I just open up a note on my iPad and just write down what I'm thankful for. So it's a cool exercise to go through, because it really humbles you. It's a good thing to do first thing in the day. But from this group, just pushing the technology. I watched this in the early 2000s. I was a trainer for DV creators, and I was teaching Final Cut, and being able to see people light up when they figured out something in Final Cut or figured out how to light something. It's that all over again. I'm watching people up their game, and it's so fun to me to see somebody go from not looking so great to being able to just command a stage, essentially. I mean, this to me is a worldwide stage. We're all broadcasters now, especially with the advent of YouTube. I mean, when I got some of these server outage or overage charges of $2,000 because one of my videos took off, it's like, you guys don't have to worry about that. You just put it up on YouTube and you'll never have to experience that. So yeah, I'm thankful for the group, especially people like Jeff Keithley, Tony Mobley. Actually, he's really, humbled me because it reminds me, just you're really, really helping a guy that's just trying to help somebody else. So I've been able to pass it on. So that's the coolest thing to me.
Great start for Thanksgiving here in the U.S. All right. With that, we're gonna go ahead and mosey on to the next question. Thank you for the question. That was a great one.
Diving into the serious list of questions today, Andy Dolph from Durham, New Hampshire says recommendations for announcer-style headsets, that is, good monitor headphones with a built-in microphone.
Go ahead, Mickey.
I think what's one of the most popular ones that you'll see in broadcasts is the Sennheiser HMD 280. And then there's a version of that, I think they call it the 281, which is just a single ear cup instead of double. And the more compact version of that, the over-the-ear version as opposed to, the on-ear version as opposed to the over-ear is the HMD 26.
And what are you wearing there, Guy?
The one that he just said, the HMD 26-2. So the cool thing about these is you can wear them either way. You could flip them both way, and then you can also flip up an ear. So if you do need to hear what's going on, I love that feature, being able to just flip it up. And then you can get these velour ear pads that go over these, and it's a dynamic mic. And basically, you choose when you order it what kind of pigtails you want. If you want, like this one's 1/4 inch and XLR, so I can patch into comms. But this is the choice of the NBA right here. This is.
Can you plug that mic in, Guy, so we can hear it?
Yeah, I could. It's going to sound very broadcasty. Let me see. This might take me a second because it's.
Hey,
it's
Alex, what do the NFL guys use?
I think they're actually using. I'm not sure because they weren't in the same room as I was, so I don't know. But that's one of the most popular mics that we've seen almost everywhere. So are the Sennheisers. Some version of the Sennheisers is generally all I see. Go ahead, Stuart.
When answering this question, nobody ever recommends Bayer Dynamic. Is there a reason for that? I've often been exposed to those with commentators in loud environments. Obviously, with sports and motorsport and drag racing, you need to be able to hear what each other's saying over the top of loud environments.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, literally, the Sennheisers are all I see everywhere. When at least in the U.S. I mean, I don't sit in the back in the broadcast of other countries, and these things do become regional. Like the U.S. will pick a whole bunch of things, and when you go to IBC, for instance, you go to NAB, you see a certain number of companies. You go to IBC, you see a whole different slew of companies. There's like a 60% overlap, but there's 40% that are very popular in Europe and other parts of the world that Americans never see at all. It's just a very fascinating, cross. It has to do with distribution and promotion and just where they got picked up. I believe Sheps makes one too. It's like my I believe I always, it's a head. I don't know if it's a double web, but they have a headset mic that I always go, someday when I have $2,000 for a headset mic, I will I'll buy it. I asked them at IBC and I was like, how much is that? And I'm like, $2,000. And I was like, I got to keep saving. Anyway, Jason and then Bill.
My understanding is that Bayer Dynamic was primarily for flight headsets, and accordingly, they tuned their microphone so that the mic gets loaded best on whatever it is planes use to load mics. I would assume it's the same, but it's not phantom power. So my guess is it doesn't work as well.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I don't think they're that specific necessarily. I know that for stick mics, these are the kind of mic that you'd see a reporter using out in field back and forth. The EV635As and those kind of things, and there are longer versions of that. And Electro Voice had some models that, like the 50 that was commonly used out there. But I bought one of the Beyerdynamics, I think the M58 or something like that, and it worked exactly like those EVs, but it had a little longer handle. I liked that about it. And I just realized that while, yes, there are brands that are kind of regional, that they use this more in Europe than they do in America, sometimes they're just, you pick up either one, you'll get exactly the same result. It's not that they're that specialized. Beyer makes good mics.
Guy, do you have a example for us?
Yeah, are you guys hearing this one? This is the Sennheiser coming in, the HMD 26-11. You can see that it's right in front of my map. This is meant for loud environments. I'm going to go ahead and take it up. So I'm at 29 on the meters right now. So I could be at a football game, I could be at a baseball game, a crowd going wild, and still be able to, you guys would still be able to hear me. So not quite the Cole mic that they use in Europe with the lips right up against it, but you guys get an idea of the sound.
Yeah, that's great. Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds pretty much like that when it's loud too. So it's a good mic that way. By the way, it's the Sheps HSC 4V XP or 4V. It's like VP or whatever. That's the one that I think Mickey might have been looking around, but that's the one that I walked up and put on. I was like, I need to have this, and then I saw the price, and I was like, I don't need to have this. I want to have this. It'll go off.
I need a reason to have this.
I'm still working on that. So my wife once asked what I wanted for my birthday. I was like, I want a Sheps headset mic. She was just like, I am not buying you that. Anyway, next question.
By the way, this is the Cole's lip mic, and you can see it is its own weird beast. You put that top
isn't
bar.
that a BBC thing?
No, the Coles. Well, yeah, they started with the BBC, and I think for motorsports and things like that, where you had to have incredible isolation, you put that top bar literally on your upper lip, and that's how this ribbon mic is designed to work.
Yeah, I've seen people use that, and I'm just like, what? Like when you watch it, I'm like, you can't broadcast that way. You can't ever cut to that. I was like, it was you can't cut to that. You can talk, you can broadcast it as long as you keep the announcers off the break. It just looks.
I would call it mumble
so
stick.
weird. It looks so weird. But it works. It works. John,
it looks like something they found in Roswell at a site of a saucer crash or something. My question on the Sennheiser.
I'm kind of surprised you don't have that mic, Ball. I mean, you should add that to your collection. You need to work on that.
I wish I had it. I don't have that many mics. You guys keep saying I got all these mics.
You do have a lot of mics. Ball, you have a lot of mics. The thing is, the funny thing is, you have a lot of mics and you have a lot of transmitters. You know,
I know. I've got way more ham gear than I have mics. And I used to have a co-working space in Austin where we had a big conference table and everybody had mics. That's why
you've got a couple mics in the background that you're not even using. There's just like mics. It feels to us like you're just awash with mics. So anyway, so it's just, that's how it feels. I don't know if that's the truth or not, but there's a lot of mics and a lot of webcams. So
anyway, my question was back to what I was going to say is, Guy or whoever, there's a Sennheiser HMD 280, but there's also a HMD 300. I always think a higher number is better. Is that the case, Guy? Or whoever knows the answer?
Go ahead. I don't. Are you there? Are you there? No, you're now. Now your mic isn't working. I think that
Mickey has the answer.
Oh, good, Mike. Mickey, go ahead.
Yeah, higher number equals better. Specifically for Sennheiser's line, not really. It's just different product lines. They like say for example the HMD 280. It's actually derived from the HD 280, which is just like regular over-the-ear headphones. And the HMD 26 comes from the HD 26, which is just regular on-ear headphones.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, where I ran into that lip mic was originally on that Mitchell and Webb look for their snooker commentary skits. And I thought they'd made that up for that skit until just now. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I thought it was a skit too. Anyway, Stuart,
buying them today, they're just about $800. So be serious about needing that.
Yeah. Stuart, and then Mickey.
Two things that Mike Bill showed before is about the only thing that would ever stand up to Murray Walker's voice. And just while Guy's figuring out his chain, oddly enough, for cameras, the higher number on a DSLR is a lower spec model. Like a 450 on a Canon is not as good as a 5. But for cinema cameras, it's the opposite way around. Go figure.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. Move on.
By the way, the other one that's not necessarily an announcer mic that I haven't tested yet. This is the other mic that I'm trying to play with, is the Crown CM311. Is not an announcer mic. It's more of a performance mic. And I keep on thinking, Crown, how does Crown make a good mic? But this is like what Garth Brooks uses. Evidently, he was religious about it. And it's supposed to sound really, really good. And as for training and everything else, I've been tempted to get it just to test it. But that's supposed to be a really, really good headset mic. It's not an announcer mic though. It doesn't have muffs or anything else. Go ahead, Mickey.
Didn't Jeff Keithley send you that one that he found in his back room on one of the shows early?
I haven't gotten it yet.
Jeff.
Still in the mail. Yeah, go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, the Coles lip mic, it's still very much widely used, especially as mentioned earlier by the BBC when they have to do packages out in the field. If they have to record the VO out in the field, but because the off-axis rejection is excellent because your mouth's right there.
It's basically a voice booth in your hand.
All right, next question.
Okay, moving on. We're going to Ivan Staley of Chicago. Has anyone used OBS Ninja as an alternative to Zoom for bringing ISO feeds of remote guest speakers into a production switcher? Wouldn't this offer more control than standard Zoom for maintaining clean ISO feeds? Use multiple monitor outs for separate feeds from a single PC, similar to Zoom rooms.
Go ahead, John.
Colin and I tested this out pretty extensively. It's a WebRTC client written by a single guy, which I have no confidence in. And I use Zoom with confidence. And it's a cool little product, but I wouldn't use it in production.
The thing to know is that Zoom is they're not both WebRTC. Zoom is a variant of WebRTC, but it has a lot of its own special sauce. And there's a couple things that the reason that we use Zoom instead of all these WebRTC clients. And we bought a bunch of PCs specifically because I had intended to use vMix. And the reason I wanted to use vMix for this was I wanted to be able to send custom returns to every person and then be able to use NDI to pass all those around. I had a bunch of ideas around that. The thing we got into as we started to unwrap that of using a WebRTC client is the complexity on the far end that they have to go into their web browser and they have to distinguish what their inputs and outputs are. There's a lot less creature comforts, like me being able to control their web camera if I'm sending them a Brio. All these other things are things that just became, and again, we have a $60 billion or $100 billion company working on Zoom, and we have like folks in their garage working on the other solutions. And so I, if I'm going to build something around that, that's why we tend to use Zoom. And yeah, it does cost us a little bit more. I actually think that this Mac Mini that I got that I'm going to be testing, I think is going to be a big solution for us because it's going to cut my cost from $2,800 a unit down to less than $1,000 a unit to do these solutions with Zoom Rooms. And so I think that there's anyway, I think that I'm still taking an expensive route. I will freely admit, but I think that what we worry about is when I send out a kit or when I bring somebody in. Can I traverse their complex IT network? Can they control it? Do they know how to use it? With Zoom, it's like 90% of the people that we work with now have used it. They have sometimes it's a challenge because they're like, oh, I do this all the time. This is the way I do it. So there's a little bit of that, but at least they know how to open it. They know how to do it. If I go into something else, it's not as easy as them just opening a web browser. It's like now I have to explain to them to go into Chrome and go into the advanced settings and go into this thing. And what you get back from executives is, what are we doing here? This is like an art project, this is, why don't we just use Zoom? And so that's what you get back into. And that's the challenge, I think, right now for WebRTC solutions. We were really bullish on them until I actually started testing them. And then I was like, this isn't going to work. So I just moved very quickly. And I will say that for a broadcast level solution, like real mission critical, lots of people are going to watch, I think Zoom Rooms are the golden golden solution right now. A Zoom room is just magical, as far as doing it. And you can break that up in a couple different ways, the way Grant does it, the way I do it. But it is like you're bringing people in point to point. And point to point really makes a difference. Anyway, next question.
We're moving on to Tony Adamopoulos of Missouri. What brands models of USB Thunderbolt adapters do you recommend to connect the ATEM or a Mix Pre, etc., for an M1 MacBook Air, which has only 2 ports? And if Mickey doesn't say it early, I will.
Go ahead, Roscoe.
Yeah, I've got the Mac one that has HDMI, USB, and the nicest thing about it is that you can run the power in through it. And to me, that's one of them. I actually have the other one too, which is the OWC, which has 2 HDMI ports on it, plus the USB 2, USB 3, and an Ethernet. So I should be on wired right now. I'm sorry if I'm breaking up. I'm not. It's Turkey Day, and I can't run the wire across the kitchen right now. But you understand. But yeah, those are the 2 I found. Yeah, those are the 2 I found, and they both work great.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, OWC has that new one that everybody is kind of anticipating greatly, that takes the 1 port and seemingly perfectly matches it to 4. So 1 in, 4 out, OWC. It's on the verge of shipping. So I would probably hold for that if I wanted everything.
Yep. All right. Anyone else? All right, next question.
Next question comes from Beju here on the panel. Revisiting a question from before the Apple Silicon announcement, how many of the panel are looking at buying a new Pro machine, Mac Pro, 16-inch, MacBook Pro, iMac, or so forth, in the near future, and have the initial test results changed your decisions?
Go ahead, John.
Alex said this on Twit last week, and I'm running an iMac Pro, and it's 2017. And so I'm getting close to the upgrade path, and I can't wait to see the hopefully WWDC announcements on the Pro level units. Should be exciting.
Yeah, I will. If I needed a Pro solution, I'd still buy one if I knew that. But I have to now know. I have to say, after seeing the performance specs, and then after I test this guy soon, I'm going to have to really need a new machine to buy one. I have to know how it's going to amortize. I mean, again, in a professional environment, you buy one when you need it, and you figure out in your head, you figure out on math, like, is this going to pay off this in X number of months or whatever? And in that world, it doesn't really matter. But what I will say is that I'm not nearly as, I thought that I'll just keep on buying Intel Macs because these little M1s aren't going to be very good. Like they're going to be like, okay, and then they'll slowly catch up. They're doing so much better than what and I have to admit that I'm super excited about if this is the best if this is the first version, like I am super excited about the next version and the version after that. The first 3, I think in 3 chips, you're not going to be able to buy anything on Earth that's as fast as these machines. In a public, without building like a supercomputer. I think these are going to be really fast. And so if this is a Mac Mini, performance, go ahead, Peter, and then Bill.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've got this damn near fully popped Mac Pro behind me, and
clean show.
Sorry. Well, yeah.
Okay.
But you get my point. It'll be interesting to see how fast the chip design will obviate this machine, right?
Yeah.
Because clearly, I don't think the M1 probably comes close on single core performance, if not exceed it in single core performance.
Right.
But that's a 24 core machine. And
of course, what's in my head is the Pro version a 24 core, 24 core CPU, and it's with a 24 core GPU with 128 gigs of RAM. Like if we get a chip that looks like that, that is gonna. Well,
right now, even at 5 nanometer, the die would be like that.
Yeah, and it wouldn't, sure, on a Pro machine, it wouldn't matter.
Well,
the Threadripper isn't that much smaller.
There are other reasons why a die that big matters.
But a Threadripper isn't that much smaller than that. I have a Threadripper in this guy.
Open it up and look carefully. Open up the package and look carefully. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the chip, the thing you put in the computer. I mean, if you want to peel the top off.
Right. I won't probably do that. I'm probably not going to do that to my Threadripper. Anyway, Bill.
Well, I was lucky because I revved my MacBook Pro, which I usually use for all of my professional work, right, I guess in November of last year. So it was right before COVID hit. And I usually skip a generation. So the generation I'll be skipping is this, what I consider the test generation of these new chips, which are undoubtedly incredibly fast, but I don't think they're fully developed yet. So I'm hoping that if I get another year out of this, which I should easily be able to do because it's doing everything I need to do, particularly delivering into broadcast television and delivering into web stuff, which is what most of my clients ask me for. If I was doing 8K stuff, it'd be a different story. But for all of those kind of uses, I'm thinking I'm going to be able to just perfectly jump to the M2 or the M4 or whatever they do as the next iteration in a form factor that gives me the I/O that a professional needs, something more than a couple of ports and a test bed for the new chip, which is, I think, where we are right now.
Yeah, John.
Yeah, for me, I think it's the monitor size that's the big holdup for me. I've got a 2018 MacBook Pro, which is the one with the crappy keyboard, and I'm not looking to upgrade it anytime soon. It's an i9, which admittedly has got some thermal issues, but what I'm more concerned about is I want a 15 or 16 inch monitor on it, and they're only giving us 13 inches on these first ones.
Yep. No. Yeah, I think, but I think that the thing is I think a lot of us are going to hold off if we can. Like everyone's going to stretch out on these Pro ones as far as we can. And I think that none of us were thinking that when I know, not none of us, but I think a lot of us were not thinking about that. We were like, oh, I'll just keep on business as usual for the next 3 or 4 years. And now it's not, now we're all like waiting for the next one. And so it's an interesting time. And it'll affect obviously business users or media creators are going to be the most affected, but also business users that want to go on, when eventually we go back out into the world, an 18-hour, 24-hour battery life is useful. Anyway, next question.
Yeah, that's too much performance gain to totally ignore. You just can't do it. You got to pay attention to it. James Babbitt of San Diego. To send video to a remote location using a Sony A7, what are the most reliable ways to connect to the internet? Is tethering the Mac to an iPhone better than using an LTE hotspot, or is there a better method?
Go ahead, Guy, and then Stuart.
I had to run downstairs real quick to grab my better method. These two. So this is the LiveView Solo. You can do 4 input, so Ethernet. So out of this hotspot, this is the Netgear M1. I have this one on AT&T, and the difference with this one is it's got Ethernet on it. So now I can go Ethernet into here, and I can go Wi-Fi and 2 modems, and then I have the LRT service, which when you send it up to the cloud, it bonds them back together. So you have 4 connections, and it'll show you a diagram of which one's pulling what, and it'll lean more on the one that's the stable connection without all the jitter and all that. So you're looking at $999. These are actually, there's a newer one of this called the M2, I believe, that is 5G. So if you're looking to get one, look at your providers to see if they have that newer model.
And and you can scale up from there as well. I used to have 2 of the top end LiveView units, and with the extra extender. So we had up to 14 modems that were all being bonded together. And you take the extender and put it outside as an Ethernet connection back to the LiveView. And, that thing will do 4K, out of that. And I think it's the LU600, I think is the model. And so the, with AGVC and, everything else. So you can keep on making these, bigger. The other thing that we're using, that what I'm putting into the kits that I'm sending out is a Meraki Z3C. It is a Meraki Z3C lets me connect the remote end to my VPN, and control a lot of things, build basically a local network, in whatever is connected to it. But it has a cellular that will let me tie back into it if I need to as well. So anyway, go ahead.
One more option on that is the AWS unit that Alex has been talking a lot about, which this thing will it'll go down to like 200 kilobit and still bump out a signal. So if you got really bad internet, this thing will still save the day. It'll put out
because of the
Zixi.
The Zixi transport is really, really robust. As far as it'll go up to 20 megs. I think that's as much as the link will let you do. But it can seamlessly flex down. So if your network's changing while it's happening is the big thing. Is a lot of them you can go, oh, I'll only do a 1 meg stream, and you're giving up a lot of headroom. But with the Zixi one, you can have it can be fluctuating, and it'll do a pretty good job of going up and down, better than almost anything else we've ever seen. That's why we always keep on asking people, like, so when am I going to get a Zixi? It's again 15. I would say 15% better than SRT. Stuart.
Yeah, Guy is underselling what that can do. Trust me, they're worth the money. But the A7, I'd have to ask James, what resolution do you need to output? Because the A7 will tether to one of those via its Wi-Fi and output directly to a URL. You've got to go through the manual, and it is a pain to set up, but it will do it. So you can actually stream directly from the A7 and the A7S out to wherever you want to send it.
Interesting. Yep. Next question.
But 720 only.
Oh, good. Oh, Guy has something else.
One more. So if you have an iPad Pro with the card in it, you can do Speedify on this and then use your phone and bond the two together. And that's like the poor man's cheapest way to at least have some kind of failover. So Speedify is the name of the app, and then an iPad with a LTE connection. One more option.
Guy, I am thankful you're in the panel every day.
That's good. Next question.
Moving on to Jonas Tattel of Reutlingen. Where should I place lights? I have 3 newer LED panels and 1 Yongnuo multicolor LED.
Good. Stuart? No. Slowly. Okay, we're going to skip you if you don't.
I was cutting and pasting, and I'm putting the link in the chat. That's 3-point lighting on Wikipedia. It's the real basic place to start. So you want a fill light, a key light, and a rim light. If you see this shiny bit here, this is what's done by the rim light, which is also separating me from the background, which is black. I've got a key there, and I'm using the big soft fill right in front of me. So you can vary them according to what you want, but the basics are key, fill, rim, and then of course you can add a splash on the background if you want to put light on there.
Good, Bill.
And this 3-point lighting technique, which is used all over the place, particularly in the beginning of your career, is sometimes referred to as Rembrandt lighting, because Rembrandt used to do this thing. And there, you can tell from 2 things. You look at the nose shadow, how that key light is casting a shadow off the nose. And if it's done right, you will get a triangle of light on the short side cheekbone. And those dial it in, but you start there. Learn to get that key right so it adds some dimension. Fill light to bring up the darker short side of the shot, and then the backlight to separate. And that's traditional 3-point lighting. But I just want to, this is like learning to use salt, pepper for cooking. It's the beginning, it's not the end. And there is a ton behind that to get somebody to look really good. But these are the basics.
And it goes through fads, so there's I think probably 10 or 15 years ago, the big fad was Jill Greenberg lighting. So Greenberg lighting was a thing, which was 2 keys on either side, that kind of faded out. So there was this, and so that became so you'll see things go through. So you kind of have to pay attention, because you'll get clients that'll ask like, hey, can you do the Greenberg lighting? We're like, like when we first started. And then after that, we were like, that's just what you do. Go ahead, Sky.
And yes, you kind of need more light than you think you do, but what you're going to do is start pulling it back, because as Bill talked about dimension, is what shadow does is it takes you away from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions. So also think about your foreground, what's in the middle, and then your background. So that's after the get your first 3 lights set first, and then you can start playing with these other aspects.
And the thing also is what you're trying to define. Like I like to define my chin, so you don't see as much of a double chin. And so I'm going up at an angle this way. So if I bring it down, if I brought my light down, you'd see a lot more of my chin. And so a lot of times what we do is we have it up at an angle like this, so that I can define. And I do this with almost everybody. So I want to pull the face using what Sky was talking about, using shadow to pull the face out from the body or from the neck. And so as that light goes down, you'll start to get less of that separation. And so you pull that light up, and then the other thing to think about is just soft light for most people, soft light is your friend. So big soft light. I've got these little like right now I'm just experimenting. So I only have I have these little Nanlite Forza 60s that are just firing into a like 3-foot soft a reflector. You know, that's all I'm using. It's just a big, but what it's done is it's created this big source in front of me that then reflects that back down to me. So it's just a nice big soft light. There's no direct light that I'm using right now, for better or for worse. I'm always playing with it. I'm always using this as an opportunity to kind of fiddle. So this
So
is
you're
this is my
bouncing,
fiddling.
you're shooting the light away from you and then bouncing it back onto you.
Yeah. So I got one of
Awesome.
those reflectors that you kind of unwrap, and then
Yeah.
I have it just kind of hooked in front of me, and then I'm firing 2 of them at that and having them bounce back. And I have
Nice.
2 mixed 60s on either side that I had been using, and I was like, I wonder if I can get away with this. And so I'm just kind of playing with that at the moment, you know, to do it. So I noticed that it was a little grainy. It's not quite enough light for my Brio, but once I put the other camera back up, we'll see. Next question. Oh, go ahead, Peter. Roscoe. I'm sorry, Roscoe.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah, I taught key fill back for years. And then Ray Thompson from Young and the Restless came in and said, you know, you put the microphones in front. So you put your soft light in front, put your key light on the side, and then the rim light is really just to separate you from the background. So he totally changed my thinking of how, because of that mic, and it makes perfect sense.
And definitely, for the most part, for when we think about how to light most people for a Zoom, we want kind of even lighting. We're not looking for a really artsy thing. We're looking for an even, and that's a kind of a broadcast look. You know, is to kind of we're looking for big soft in front of you. Like what we're sending out on the new kits that we're building are the again the Nanlite 60. They're the mix or the not mix the compact 60s that are like these 60 or 68s that are bicolor, and they're pretty big, and there's 2 of them, but they're really designed to be right in front, just a little bit on both sides to kind of fill all that in. Go ahead, Sky.
Thank you. Shane Hurlbut has a whole concept about illumination, and I took several of his classes, and his lovely wife got him actually teaching from he was on set with whatever he was doing, and he's an ASC credited director there in Hollywood, and he really has pushed that education out, and that would be a great resource as well if you want to go deeper and deeper. But
Absolutely.
to your point of why we often call it broadcast lighting, well, it's because all you wanted to do is see that person, and the nuances of subtle lighting and shading and all of that you didn't want to do when people were walking around.
Oh, here's the thing. When you're cutting from one person to another or doing 4-ups, it looks weird. That when everyone's got some artsy version of it, the reason everybody wants it to be the same is they want everyone to be kind of on the same playing field and look like they're in the same space. So when one person decides they're going to do this hard, film noir on one side, and another person does something else, it looks weird on TV. So the broadcast lighting really wants everyone to look kind of the same. Next question.
Okay, moving on to, and I don't know if it's Joachim or I was going to say walking, but that's the wrong entire culture. Barons out of Delft, the Netherlands, says, I want to up the game of our company's daily stand-up and other web meetings and provide all personnel with a care package, Christmas is coming, with a small table tripod with an LED panel light, a microphone, and possibly a webcam. It should be dump-proof for anyone to set up and use. Any advice?
Go ahead, Paul.
The little Nan light and the tripod I showed yesterday, the Ulanzi tripod, that Nan light is so much fun to use, and I'll leave the other components up to the other panelists.
Go ahead, Sky.
Well, this $68 solution that Guy recommended, I haven't opened it yet, but I'm wondering if that is at least 80% of those options. This what is it, Guy? The
Facebook Portal Mini.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. I mean, if I was to answer this question, I'd probably say that little Video 360 or some kind of sub $100 camera, a ring light, and then the Polson with the TechRes adapter is probably the wrap it up, take it, and then ship it out.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
I am grateful to Delft for Delft Blue. I'll add that much in, but also a Gorilla tripod is probably a good place to go if you want dump proof.
I would the one that we send out that we send out is a Nanlite LumaPad 25 with the Pulson with the TechRise, and then a Brio 920 if we have a lower budget. So those are the ones that we send out. We send out 50 a month. So it's we send out a lot of them, and so of some version of that we've tried a lot of different things, and we've kind of lined up with the challenge we've had with ring light specifically has been reflections on people's eyes, we want to use a larger ring light, but that ring light we get a lot of feedback from our participants about. So if you get someone who's an influencer, everybody knows ring lights and they all use them and it's all easy and they usually have them. We don't have to send them to them. But we send them to like a academic or whatever. They're like, what am I doing here? And they're like, and so, these people are crazy. And so we have to, from our perspective, when you talk about making it simple, it's how do we make it not just the best solution, but the easiest solution for them to set up. And so those are that's kind of the direction that we go on the ones that we build. Next question.
Moving along to Hugo in Portugal, who says new YouTube rules allow for them to insert ads on any creator's video, even if they're not partners. Will office hours be on YouTube if it starts to happen on these videos?
Yeah. I mean, it's a bummer. I mean, it's not, it's not a battle I'm going to fight. And we are going to, again, continue to test other platforms. There could be a point where we decide that something else is a better platform to do it. I don't get a lot out of YouTube, so I'm not really relying on YouTube it's just a free place to put stuff. I mean, if it really became a thing, I would be tempted. I don't know how YouTube really inserts into live. So I don't know whether it does that or does it very well. If we were able to put it, if I had the budget to put it on, and I may decide to do this, it may make more sense at some point for us to go to Vimeo, or I'm tempted to put it on Akamai because we have an Akamai account, but I also know how much it costs me to do that, and I'll get a lot of trouble. I have to make sure that I have a budget for it to do that because it costs every time, especially long shows like this. At high resolution it would mean every show would cost me a couple $100, and so it would I have to think through that. Go ahead, Stuart.
From what you just said about YouTube Live, it's clear you're seeing it as a contributor and not the person watching. If you join a live stream late, like after it started, you will see a couple of ads then, and then you'll see a couple of ads at the end, but not during the stream.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it always makes sense to do it. The reason that I put up YouTube Live was mostly to make archives available for folks easily, that I don't have to think about, like they're available immediately. And the other reason that I did it was because some people were sensitive to going to Zoom, so it just gave them a place to do that. And so, and the reality is it's actually it's a higher resolution on YouTube than it is in Zoom if you're a participant, so right now. So for us. So anyway, so I put it up there for those reasons. I don't have any strong opinion about it one way or the other. If we find a better solution, we'll use it. Laura?
The one thing I do use the YouTube videos for, and this may not be the intention, is if I have somebody that I'm like, oh, I'm in this office hours thing, you need to see this. Right. I send them the YouTube link first because in that YouTube you have the join link. I don't have to go find it.
Yep.
It's right. They can experience it on their own time. They can make a decision about it, and if they want to jump in, the link is right there.
Exactly. And so it just makes it easy. I mean, I have some ideas on how to make that better down the road. But I think that YouTube has been a relatively easy solve. And while I find ads in general to be a little annoying, I'm not going to stop using it right now. I'm using it because it's the most stable, easiest to use platform. And so, but definitely not committed to keeping it there. Next question.
Moving on to Paul Wallace of Austin, Texas. Is the new Roland video switcher going to give ATEM a run for the money? And he has a link there to that. And he says the note, there's another link after the note.
There it is right there. This is it. Right there.
Guy's got one. Guy's got one in his hand.
He's got one in his hand.
Yeah. So the difference with The difference with this one right here against the ATEM is that the Mini, at least, is that you do have the 2 HDMI outs, so you can do program and multi-view, which is a big deal with a lot of people. And you've got the XLR audio in and out. And then you've got control over each audio channel with a rotating knob, which is pretty cool. And then what I like a lot is the T-bar, as well as the ability to do picture-in-a-picture and size in real time. So you can look at the sizing in your preview monitor and then take that. So cool device for $1,295, but the USB out is one thing that it does not have. So it does not have, it's not a webcam when it shows up. So you take the HDMI out and use an adapter like a little Atmos Connect or something like that to go HDMI to USB. Any other questions?
or a doesn't have camera control either, and it doesn't have a remote app that will let you run it. I bought 11 of these, 11 ATEMs, so that I can control all the 6Ks that we got. And so that relationship, I think, is very hard. I do think, to your point, that Roland solves a different problem than ATEMs do, and I think that there's definitely a good use case for Roland. The XLR inputs, the dual HDMI outputs, I think that as an easy hardware, I'm not going to add, I don't need the whole ecosystem. I'm just going to cut some HDMI cameras. I think that, and I have a little bit more budget, I think that the Roland starts to become more compelling that way than what ATEM does. I would love to see Blackmagic go up from the ISO and add a couple of those things, although, well, we'll see what kind of XLRs we get, and whether they work really well. I'd have to be like, well, I have to test it. Go ahead, John, and then George.
Yeah, as a hobbyist, the Roland's just really out of the budget. I mean, $300 versus $1,200. It's, and I get professional is a totally different thing, but I think the ATEM Mini and the Mini Pro and the ISO all address a separate market in addition to the professional market.
Well, I think that the challenge that Roland is going to continue to have is the fact that they're really marketing to their own market. Like there's a group of people that use Rolands and they can keep on serving those markets. The question is, can they grow that market? And I think that the ecosystem that Blackmagic has built is pretty devastating. That once you get into it, and again, once you start buying a couple cameras for that little $300 switcher, and then you start, once you start adding these things up, the ecosystem becomes very hard for you to leave. And I think that that's going to be, and we're talking about a lot of minis being sold, a lot more than Rolands, and so the thing is that so the numbers are just stunning, of these minis going out by all the retailers that I've talked to. It's been, I don't know, Guy can probably talk to it. It's a lot of units, that are going out, and those people are never going back. Like, I don't think that they're ever going to, like, once they have a $299 switcher, they're going to get used to it. They're going to get good at it. They're going to start buying stuff that ties into it. They're going to see all the other tools they can do with their iPads. And then it just becomes very, like I bet you that the conversion rate out of an ATEM environment is probably less than 5%, which is why I think that everybody else is in a lot of trouble. When it comes to it, when I'm calculating what I should work on and what I should use, that's a pretty, deep place to get out of. But I do think that the Roland right now, there's definitely people that I would recommend that specific switcher to, because of what they're doing. It would absolutely work. I don't want to spend a lot on my HDMI cameras, and I want good audio to go in, and I need my multi-view and my program, and I want to just be able to have it easy, and you just switch it, and I don't have an extra piece of software. There's a ton of places where that switcher is the perfect solution. Go ahead, George, and then Jason, and then Paul.
So I think what Roland has done, and there is a SDI version of that switcher also. So I think what Blackmagic has to do, well, hopefully they're forward thinking that the ATEM Mini is working right now. And even if they made a little bit of a larger Mini or Pro with SDI inputs, I think it'll be solid.
Well, they have that. It's called a production switcher. They have a production HD switcher. The only thing that's different is just the last generation that doesn't have Teranexes. But once they add Teranexes to that little production switcher, they already have that solution available. Whoop. Are you there? Sorry, you got quiet. But yeah, they what's missing is the next generation. I think of that production HD switcher will be the same SDIs, except they'll all be Teranex, and then it'll have a USB-C out, and it'll be able to and an Ethernet that can stream, and that's I think that's the next generation of all the Blackmagic switchers. By my guess is by next spring, we'll see all those switchers kind of cinch up together, where they all have some of those base things that they figured out on the other ones, and that's when you get kind of this nice smooth, from $300 to $10,000, you've got a solution that solves almost every, problem at different prices. Go ahead, Jason, and then Ball.
This year at CES, I had a chance to really put the Roland through its paces. They look at your press badge, and all of a sudden they realize, wait a minute, he's press, but he knows what he's talking about, and they let you mess with it. In my opinion, it is a fantastic unit. It really is. The real selling point is that the preamps sound fantastic. Really,
that is one of the advantages.
Roland, really good.
Roland, comes from audio, so you're going to have the audio pipeline within that switcher is probably going to be considerably better than Blackmagic's.
And it's not worth $1,200. That's my other thought.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pricey. It's pricey, but it's extremely rugged. It looks like it's metal and rugged. It's got the stick shift on it. And it just correct me if I'm wrong, Guy, but it's a great solution, but you've got to do a whole bunch of add-ons and little interfaces to get it to equal the ATEM Mini Pro.
But Paul, you could buy 10 microphones for that.
But
yeah, I guess it depends on what you want to do. I mean, it's a different tool for everybody. This thing, you're right, it's very rugged. And the thing that I like is that you can press the menu button, and if you have a monitor hooked up, you can do a lot of the controls that some people don't want to carry a computer into the venue. They just want to be able to set up and go and just turn it on or have a volunteer run it. And then these are really low latency. So if you're doing iMag, that's where these guys have excelled, is in that iMag world where it's just like, you go into Freeman or somebody like that, and they just want a basic switcher, and it just works out the gate. You don't have to put in a bunch of stuff. So that's where you'll find these.
And it's got a stick shift. It has a stick shift.
Well, a T-bar is what we call it, but yeah, call it a stick shift. It doesn't go into fifth gear.
Shift.
Or if you're an editor that goes to your car, you're like, wow, this car has a T-bar. So it's like so.
But it only has 2 gears. It doesn't have a 4-panel, a 4 or 5 speed.
That'd be a really
3
cool
on
switcher.
the tree.
Yeah. So I think that the other thing that I look at is just trajectory. So I think that when I'm investing in hardware, when I'm buying stuff, I'm also trying to look at where's that company going, and I think that the hard part I look at the Roland like I have to solve a very specific problem. It solves it perfectly. I would buy it right now. When I think of it as an ecosystem, every time I'm at NAB and I see Roland, I'm like, oh, they're still here. Oh, they're I don't quite understand why, but they're still here. They have enough. And with Blackmagic, you're just like, oh my gosh, they're going to take over the world. So that's and when you have that 2 different things, you just have to think about that long term. I bought into pieces of hardware that are no longer viable anymore, or into companies that are no longer viable. So I also think about when I'm buying hardware, where is that company trajectory going that I'm going to invest in? And so that's the harder thing I think for Roland to get over sometimes. Again, they have a strong customer base that's still using them, that is installed, and I think they'll be okay. But I think that when I'm thinking about that ecosystem, I buy that switcher. When I grow up, do I want to shade my cameras with it? When I grow up, do I want it to do these other things? When I want to be able to access it over IP? If you don't need those things and you need to have it just do the thing for the next year or 2, then I think the Roland's a perfect example. If you think you're buying into something at the base that you're going to keep growing, I don't know. Anyway, next question.
Moving along, we have Brian Anderson in Silver Spring, Maryland. Any suggestions for a recording drive for both the ATEM Mini ISO and the Blackmagic 6K? Samson T5? Note, I see a deal on the T7, but I've read it doesn't always get along with the Blackmagic gear.
Do not buy the T7 for a Blackmagic gear. Like, there's something going on with it. In addition to that, just know that a T7 is really fast for about the first 350 gigs of transfer. And then after that, it slows down. You might as well go to lunch. Like, it is... It just like it's going really fast, and you're like, oh, because I'll transfer like 800 gigs to a T7, and I just know that I'm going to be hosed on the second half of that, and so I just know that it's going to be a much longer transfer than what it says. So for whatever reason, it goes from hundreds of megs a second down to like 35 after the first 350 to 400 gigs. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I will echo that. I made that mistake exactly once and returned the T7. The T5s
I have lots of them.
great.
To be clear, I use the T7s a lot. I just know that they have I just know what their limits are. They are inexpensive and they're convenient, and I have probably 20 of them. So it's not like I don't use the T7s. I just don't use them with the cameras. The T5s are what I use with the cameras.
And no matter what they say, they are not faster. They are not faster. Just remember that. And OWC, I believe OWC, I've used their M2 drives and they work fantastically, but whatever Blackmagic has, I have stuck to that and none of those have ever done me wrong.
Yeah. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yes, going back to the write speed on the Samsungs. Strangely enough, I was buying SSDs for that thing and looked through Samsung specs, and a lot of their SSDs now have a buffer in there. The size of the buffer is related to the size of the drive. So something like the 250 gig SSD that I bought the other day has a 12 gig buffer, whereas the 2 terabyte version has a 78 gigabyte buffer. Once you fill the buffer, the write speed drops.
Yep. All right, next question.
Moving on to Andy Dolph of Durham, New Hampshire. I'm sorry. For remote podcast recording, is anything better than Zencaster, particularly for monitoring and metering?
There is. Oh, now I've recommended it, but I haven't. I've been on shows that have used it, and I just can't think. And so I always recommend it, but I haven't used it myself. That has been really convenient for that process. Go ahead, Jason.
Zoom H6, I've done that as long as you don't need to podcast live. The metering is fantastic and it's extremely clear. Also, the compressors work pretty well.
Squadcast is the other one that I get brought on to stuff using squadcast.fm. And I don't know about the metering, but it basically it records. You can have a live conversation, then it's uploading in the background to the other server, and everything's all synced up. And I can't tell you what it's like, but everybody I talk to that uses it loves it, and I've been a contributor on it, and I can tell you as a contributor, it's really easy. So those are some other ones to look at. There's also the DLT. It's like DLTIO or something like that we've been brought into. It's kind of more of it's like the replacement for ISDN for radio. Go ahead, Baishu.
Yeah, I'll suggest something that I suggested before, cleanfeed.net. They have a
right.
basic free version as well. And with the pro version, you can do separate track recordings. And they also have an uncompressed version for the pro as well, where you can have the host have a multi-input output interface. So you could be recording separate tracks out, and you can be recording directly in the browser from the service as well. So it's a nice option, and it's not very expensive. It's free. There's a basic version that's free, and the pro version is $22 a month for unlimited records. So it's pretty nice.
Clean feed?
Yeah, cleanfeed.net.
Yeah, and then the one I was thinking of was IPDTL. I've been brought into on a couple of those that have worked pretty well. Next question.
Moving on to Michael Luke of Toronto. Has anyone had issues with participants logging into a Zoom webinar but ending up in the wrong room?
We don't have any rooms here. We're going to know tomorrow because we're going to start. Now, I think that what I'm guessing is that's predefining. You're predefining their where they're going, and they're going to come in predefined rooms. So that might be what we're talking about. And I don't know. So I'm afraid we got stumped. We need Grant here. Grant will know those questions. So you have to come back again, and if you see Grant here, then he's the master of understanding rooms. All right, next question.
Next question comes from Dave Oden in Johnstown. I am researching a new computer to replace a TriCaster 40 to run vMix. What's the right capture card to bring in 4 SDI cameras? And in the future, can I add another one to bring in 4 more SDI cameras? And he has a note, I've been considering the Blackmagic Decklink 8K Pro.
Stuart?
Oddly enough, one of the packages that arrived for me this week was a Kona 4 from AJA, which I've got for recording RAW. I'm just putting the list of supported hardware from vMix in the chat. So Dave, ask me this question next week because I haven't installed vMix yet. I've only got the thing in the machine running, but I will let you know if the AJA one does the job. It's 4 SDI inputs at up to 4K, which is about as hard as vMix gets.
Sure, what's the price on that?
I bought mine secondhand, And if you have a look, and yeah, I can share the link now because I made sure I got mine first. Unix Surplus on eBay has them for $10.44 US, which is significantly less than the current retail price. And the bloke claimed that he had 160 in stock. So they came from, I'm guessing, companies that have closed down and they've disassembled machines and what have you. But the condition it was in was absolutely fine, although I have found out that AJA lied about it recording RAW on a PC.
Send a
Just what I
message to
bought it for.
Leland Best. Leland will know.
Yeah, I've already chatted to Leland.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, if Dave wants to phrase that question again next week, I will report back to how it works on vMix.
And as we worked with as we were doing vMix tests, we were testing with the 8Ks, the 8K cards. That's what we've got on all our machines are either 8K or Duos, Blackmagic Duos or Blackmagic 8Ks, and those were specifically because we just couldn't get enough 8Ks. We needed them at that moment. So otherwise, we would have standardized all on the 8Ks, and they work perfectly with vMix. So we haven't had any issues at all with those. So, and I don't remember what their price point is. I don't think it's $1,000 though. I think it might be $995 or $895 or something like that. New. Next question.
Moving on to Vincent Alvarez from Bellingham. How come with my low-cost pile mic, correct placement, into a TechRise, into the USB extension, into my PC tower, my audio level is still low? Can I adjust it in Windows? Note, while using Zoom per others, the level all the way up, auto adjust is off.
In general, we've been getting at least enough out of these. So I'm thinking that there's something going on in the chain somewhere. Roscoe?
Yeah, I'm on the Mac side, so I don't know. But yeah, the Sabrent card's just slightly lower in my experience from the TechRise.
Sabrent,
and Sabrent. And so the TechRise is as good as you can get. You have to go inside your system and use something like Audio Hijack on the Mac or something like that to get it up higher.
The one that other people have used, and I can't remember whether it was on this group or someone else that we work with, is the Audio Technica has their own USB, analog to USB. And I've heard that it might have a little bit more gain than the TechRise. I just haven't had time to test it.
And Jeff Francis is running it straight into an ATEM Mini, and he's working fine, and he's an audio guy. So
yeah.
Is there any non-XLR equivalent to the little cloud lifters or things like that? Is there any boost thing? I remember we used to have little red plugs that were a cut for hot mics coming into a mic input.
The issue is I wouldn't do that because I don't think these mics can handle that. They're already adding noise to the signal. So I would want to find out, I would really want to research the digital part of my chain because they are providing enough gain somewhere to a lot of different devices. They're providing enough gain. So there's something at the USB to app level that is bringing them down. Bringing it up in the analog level is going to bring that noise floor into the, just make it more apparent because what I will say about these little inexpensive mics is the noise floor is very high. And again, I think that the Samsung is higher than the more expensive Samsung is higher than both the Pile and the Pulson. So it's so you just have to be very careful about doing analog gains on them. Next question.
Moving on to Andy Dolphin, Durham, New Hampshire again. Minimum cost viable dose setup for one person green screen. Particularly camera, but also setup and lighting. May need to do a bunch of mini studios for a Zoom play. Viable setup for one person green screen.
Well, so the thing is that it's the quality of your green that's going to make a difference. When you're lighting the green screen, the cheapest thing to do is make sure that you have the ability to do an RGB parade. So you want to see that RGB parade and you want to be able to see a scope. So just there's lots of different scopes. If you have an older machine, I'm afraid it hasn't been updated, but you can download for free Conduit, Pixel Conduit, and it has scopes built into it for free. A lot of apps have them, Final Cut and everything else. But so you can open things and look at them slowly. Obviously, there's things like Scope Box. You can open it for at least 14 days. And so but you need to see, and a lot of little monitors have scopes. The reason you need to see that is number one is you need to see your LumaScope, because what you want to do is you want to see a nice, thin, straight line that's going across the screen. When you're looking at RGB parade, you want that thin line. You want your green level to be between 60 and 70% all the way across. on that line all the way across, not over 70, not below 60. It has to sit inside that 10% range, going all the way across that green screen with someone seated. Someone seated in front of a green screen is the easiest thing to key that you're ever going to get, but you have to do it just right. So you get that nice thin line that goes all the way across. You need that green screen to be 3 to 4 feet, really at least 3 feet behind them, minimum 3 feet, not 2.5, 3 feet. We do 10 feet, or 8 feet. This one's a solid 5.5 feet behind me when I pull it off its green screen. The reason for that is that the green is a big diffuse light. And as it gets closer to you, that diffuse color starts to corrupt your edges. It starts to hit your shoulders, hit the top of your head. That makes it hard. That means there's more green in those areas and it doesn't pull as well. So the thing is that by pulling that back, it means that more of the light reaching the camera is only the light that's coming straight for it. And it tends not to be bouncing off of you, in that area. Also, it means that you can light the foreground separate from the background. The background needs large sources that are flagged away from the foreground. Do not light the subject with the same lights that you're lighting the background. Now, you can get cheap, you can go and get shop lights or shop fixtures. Then if you can find on eBay, they're hard. I think they've been discontinued, so you kind of have to dig around a little bit. You can get 4-foot Kinaflow green. They're pure green lights that Kinaflow used to make. And they're still floating around. You can get them in different places. And you put 2 of those into like a $14 fixture, from Costco or from Walmart or whatever. And you'll get these 2, only two on each side. And those green, and then you can literally, if you use green lights, you can literally use a green paper, like seamless green paper that you buy at the photo shop for almost nothing. You roll that down, you take those 2 green lights, you just need to make sure they flag them. So you have some kind of board or whatever so that none of it touches you. Again, this is not a big expense. Obviously I've done this specifically for schools so that they can do their stand-ups in green. Anyway, you have those lights. The lights are going to be the most expensive thing you spend money on. They're going to be like $20 each or something like that. So anyway, so then you have that, and then you light the person however you light them, however you want them to look. If you do that, you're going to get as good then it's just a limit of your camera. If a web camera is going to compress everything, so you're going to have a certain limit to what it can do. If you're able to send an uncompressed, if you're able to do something like a mini recorder or something else that can do 422, you'll get most of that resolution back. If you can do something that do 444 into your camera, into your computer, you can do more. What you want to do in a perfect world is you want to key that footage. And by the way, the Blackmagic switchers, the new ones, the new generation that has the advanced keyer, is an incredible keyer. Like it is, some of the best you can get in hardware. Not the best. The Carbonites have a pretty good keyer in them. The Ross Carbonites have a pretty good keyer in them. But in general, I would say at $300, it's unbelievable. What these little keyers will do. So you mix what I just said into there, and then the last little trick that no one thinks about is that you don't need a clean key. So you don't need to completely make the background transparent. You need to make it transparent enough that you believe the background. Don't put them in front of windows. Put them in front of a background that's there. See this little dark area that's up in this corner? This gray could be something that you just kind of overlay over top of things. And if it's just a little darker on the edges or a little darker in a couple of places, won't matter. It'll just look like it'll just have this kind of look. No one's going to know it. When you guys saw me when I used to do green screen all the time, it was like a half green screen. If I turned it off, you just see gray back there. I didn't hit it hard. The reason you do that is that by not hitting it hard, you will get all your hair details back. Because when you're hitting it hard, you're crushing all those greens and all those fine greens in here, and you're pushing into the heads. That's what all your virtual background software does. It starts with a really bad signal, which is what goes to the server, or the HDMI it's a web compressed signal that then they're trying to make it perfectly transparent. And that's why everybody has these smooth edges that disappear and appear with their glasses and their headsets and stuff like that. So by doing a soft key with a pure green, in that sense, you will get as good a keys as you can get keys that are broadcast quality, from that, and your hardware spend will be measured in low hundreds. Maybe even, like $150, $200, Yeah, go ahead, Bill, and then Jason, and then Paul.
So the very first ones that I ever did, I used, I bought 2 shop lights, exactly what Alex is saying. They had 4-foot tubes in them. I didn't have green tubes, so I used the ones that were there. In the early days, fluorescents had a kind of a green spike, and that was okay. But if you get them that don't have a green spike, that's okay too. And so I would take a plumbing fixture, a little 90-degree elbow that had a flange on it, and I would bolt that to the back of the light so that it would sit on top of a light stand vertically. And then I would put 2 of those pointed at the green screen. Alex is exactly right. You want enough distance so that you don't get hot spots because the lights are too close. So if you have a real tight throw front to back, it's going to be difficult because as you get the lights closer to the green screen material or painted wall or whatever, you're going to get hot spots on the side, and that's not good. So you try to get the lights away so that you flush, and then you try to get the talent in front of that plane of light, exactly what he's saying. But I was able to pull decent keys even back in the DV days with nothing but those 2 $10 shop lights from Home Depot with a couple of plumbing fixtures to mount them and care.
Jason?
It took me a second to switch from the 4K from the production switcher. I am not following Alex's rules perfectly, but +1 on that. I mean, look at the hair detail. It's pulling an amazing key, and that's the A10 Mini. So definitely it does work.
Yeah, absolutely. Paul?
Here's a pretty good deal on a backdrop with lights, with clips, everything for $90 from eMark.
I will say that the quality of the cloth green screens is not great. So again, you just have to decide how much you're going to do on it. Those lights will be a little bit more sourcey, so it'll be very hard for you to get head to tail. I mean, you definitely can get it. What I'm talking about is getting every hair. What that will do is get you most of the way there, and it's, that's the real challenge, and again, I'm actually using less quality on the background and getting it, but it's the lights that'll make a difference. If you're ready to spend some more money on a given studio, then the green screen, the green screen to use is composite components. There is no close second. Like there is nothing. Like I have used all kinds of green screens all over the world. It's Lycra, which means you can stretch it, and it doesn't have any wrinkles, and it is easy to mount, and it's easy to clean, and it's easy to, it's $400, $300, $400. It's going to blow your budget, for a lot of those things. But if you're going to build one studio, then you're going to put up a green screen. There is nothing like it as far as setting up the green screen. Go ahead, Stuart and Sky.
2 points of note, especially the link that Paul showed, which was pretty common versions of the round. The green cloth isn't the cheapest thing there. The stands are very cheap. They fall down. They're too light. Try to avoid using them if you can. And Jason, half this panel is jealous of your hair detail.
Go ahead, Sky.
Yes, again, Paul, also, I used to buy tape stock that was more expensive than that. So it's almost a disposable item in some production values. So if you're going to use it once and it works for you, awesome. If you need to drag it in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out, good luck.
With anything that we buy, you always want to measure. I think a lot of times we tend to value how much does it cost, but we don't calculate how long will it take to do it. Like cost of ownership and cost of use is rarely calculated by bean counters. They just count, a lot of times they count like how much did I put on a credit card, as opposed to how many hours am I going to spend, or how many hours is it going to take to support, this output, and then also what's the quality output, and what do people think of me when I have a good key or bad key, that kind of thing. Anyway, next question.
Value for money is the question.
Yep. Next question.
Moving on, we go to Doug Johnson in Orem, Utah. We've seen several references to doing video streaming through Amazon on office hours. Could you give us the 30-second summary of how that works?
Let's see. Wait, video streaming through. Oh, yeah. So sorry, I thought you were talking about Amazon Live, which is a different question, or live streaming on Amazon. So what you can do is you can stream to Amazon's media, system Media Live. There's a couple other there's Media Connect, and then there's there's a bunch of different pieces to that process, but you can just RTMP into it. So you can create inputs where you're just taking OBS or whatever and send it to Amazon. What Guy was showing there is the most hardware-based version of that, which is you take this little box and you plug it into the internet. It uses DHCP, gets connected to the internet, and it checks in with AWS. And then from that, you can actually buy it. If you have an AWS account, you can literally order it from your AWS account. It'll just show up attached. So like, or more importantly for us is you can buy it and have it drop shipped. When you buy it, just drop shipped to a client, and all they got to do is plug it in. Like just plug in the Ethernet, you plug in your HDMI or SDI cable. I see it pop up on my end and I see video. Then what I need to do, and I've been meaning to, I'm a little behind. I'm meaning to set up a new that I move my links over to it, because I can't open my company account because there's too many things in there that I can't show. So I'm going to build a clean account that I can like do demos on. But once it shows up, it's just an input. You just see it. You see one of your devices is this. You click on it, you can see the video and everything else. You just set that up as an input for an AWS. You'll open up an output in Media Live and say, I want to do an RTMP stream, and I can have 3 or 4 of them. I can say I want to RTMP to Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and whatever else I want to put in there. And then you set up all the same things that you would set up in your encoder to do that, but you can have them all going out of that location. And then from there, you just send them out to your social, and you can do that with Restream, and you can do it with, there's a lot of other ways to do it. The main thing is that as you grow, if you want to build APIs and you want to build a front end and you want to do a lot of other things, it's more scalable. We do events where things are a lot more scalable. There's a lot of stuff that has to go in a lot of different places. So we scale past Restream very fast. If I was just getting started and I was talking to someone who just wants to get their stream and stream it to a bunch of things, I would say use Vidyard or Stream or Restream. Those are the easiest ways for you to just get out to a bunch of different locations. But the problem is you'll hit a ceiling on those where that's all you can do, right? And that's fine. That's what 95% of the people need. We're in the 5% where I need to be able to reroute it and do a bunch of other things and be able to control it, and I have more refined needs for that process. And also with that link, you're getting Zixi out, which means that wherever you're sending it, you have a high probability of getting all the frames, from one end to the other. And then we're also doing work where you can put up to 8 channels onto that of audio, which means I can put stereo and 6 languages, into the cloud as one stream. And then once I'm in Media Live, I can sit there and go, okay, well, this is the English stream, French stream, German stream, Chinese stream, whatever, and create new outputs, from all of that, which I cannot do with things like Restream and stuff like that. It's a full, encoding system in the cloud where I can have all those tools. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I used a service like that for a long time. I can't remember what it was called, but it let me stream out to like 12 different services, and it was awesome. But then they changed all the rules. They said, well, we're going to charge you more money. We're going to limit it to this and that. And then the same thing could happen with Restream. They could all of a sudden change the rules.
I doubt that they'll change the rules very much. They've got a lot of, when you're small, you can change the rules because you can reset because we're not making any money doing that. I think Restream's in a pretty stable place, as is Vidyard. So I think that both of those are solid solutions to experiment with if you're looking for a turnkey solution that's really easy. Livestream does, you can restream from Livestream as well. And if you're a company or an organization, there are incredible things in Livestream that are really interesting. Or Vimeo, you can pay them to like build channels, so you can have your own channel on Android platforms and Apple TV and the iOS platform and all those things, and then you can just publish to all of those, both VOD and live. And those are all relatively easy services to set up via the Vimeo platform, as well as stream. So there's a lot of, it just depends on what you need, each one of these, because we're scaling a lot and doing kind of really complicated things. The AWS platform is more of what we need. But I think that if someone was going to talk about turnkey, it's not very user friendly. I will say that the AWS is not. We're working on building interfaces that are going to be more user friendly for folks, so that for our clients that they can just turn things on and hit buttons and make it all go. But right now pain to use. Go ahead, John.
So the last 5 productions that we've done, we don't even stream anymore. We're doing everything on Zoom.
Yep.
So
yeah, I mean, it's Zoom. Zoom's a pretty powerful platform that way. It just doesn't, for us, it doesn't scale. Like we're working on jobs that, Zoom's great for little, small groups like us. When you start saying, well, I want 500,000 people, Zoom's not the best solution for that. Yep. Next question.
Moving on to Brian Anderson of Silver Springs, Maryland, who says, for those on the panel who have experience with or sell the ICANN PT 1200 12-inch portable teleprompter, does the monitor have a flip function built in?
Yeah, go ahead, Jason, and then Guy.
I'll defer to Guy. Yes, I've used it, and it's a great prompter. Guy?
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, it's got a flip function in it. That's what makes it work. Otherwise, you got to use what I'm using right now. I actually swapped out the monitor in mine to get a little bit bigger image. And yeah, it's a $295 decimator if you don't have one of those. So if you're building a teleprompter, it's much nicer just to get one that has the menu function where you just say flip horizontal, and that does the trick.
And that's the one I use, the 12-inch. It's the one kind of my mobile unit that I use. I think I just got some more. It has a flip vertical and flip horizontal buttons on it, and then in the menu you activate them whether they're going to work or not. And it's not as bright as some of the other teleprompters I've had, but what I will say is that it's really easy to pack. It's easy to pack. It's it's durable. It's the number one thing I worry about with teleprompters is moving them because they're mobile for me. So it's a great little one, and we've operating distance for us has been up to 8 feet. I don't think I would use them more than an 8-foot throw to it at 12 inches. But smaller teleprompters are actually your friend because it keeps your eyes from scanning. Go ahead, Brian.
So brightness actually was another concern as I was looking at the specs. So any suggestions other than this?
Well, it depends on what you're doing for it. If you're are you using it for a teleprompter or are you using it for a Teratron?
Both.
So the teleprompter is just fine.
Yeah.
As an Teratron, it's a little harder to, if you're putting a bunch of soft lights right around it, it's not quite as bright as some of the other ones, the prompter people ones that we've used in the past. But that's a function of you could swap out the monitor. The monitor just doesn't have a ton of beef to it, as far as that goes. But you don't want to play. I would recommend not playing with the glass. You can get glass that's more silvered that will look brighter. The problem you'll get into is you're losing more stops, on your camera, because you're gonna, I think that they say a stop and a half, but we definitely lose at least 2 stops, with going through the teleprompter. So it's another thing to keep in mind.
With the glass in that ICANN. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to ask, what's the best prompter people unit, Alex, for like run and gun, quick and go? I'm trying not to spend $1,000. Is that even possible?
The ICANN is the best run and gun one. Like if I'm going to move around and move it, the ICANN is a better solution than any of the prompter people ones. The prompter people ones we send them out on 1650s. Like they're big, they're big solutions. 1650 Pelican cases. That's when I say 1650s, that's our standard operating Pelican case for most. We try to standardize on Pelican cases because when you go to an airport and you're bringing a bunch of Pelican cases and they're all different, it's really hard to stack them on the carts. So 1650s are kind of our standard larger. There's 1510, 1650 are the 2 big ones that we use. Anyway, those are 1650 solutions. We use when we go to the prompter people ones, we're using 24-inch. So at that point, we want them to be larger, and we're primarily using them as a Teratron process. So that means that we're looking at somebody else in the other side. So we want it to be larger. After the 24-inch prompter people, they make larger ones, but once we get larger, we make our own. So we built the largest one I built is 70 inches. And the ones that I built kits for are 55 inches. So these are 55-inch teleprompters. They're really cool. They hydraulic and they come out of cases. So we had for a big corporate client, we built all these cases that you could literally roll into an executive's office and hit a button, and the whole thing, the teleprompter would just rise out of the case, and then they could do a teleconference that's looking straight into the camera. And all the GAC and everything else is all there, and you just plug an Ethernet and plug power into it, and you call it a day, The mics were actually built into it, but you could run a mic out to it. So anyway, so you can build. After that, we build them ourselves, custom. But up to 24 inches, the Prompter People one is good. And then as a running gun, I would use the iCan. Go John, and then Stuart, and then Jason.
So Alex, one of the best recommendations that I've heard from our group and other people is looking at the camera. And so I need a Teratron for my Studio C over here, which is 10 feet away.
Yeah.
For the Blackmagic Micro camera, what do you suggest?
Well, in Teratron, I would still go with the iCan. Because it's just a nice size there. Now, if you're going to use it, the hard part is that using it as a grid. So if you're going to use the grid view a lot, then I would recommend the Prompter People 24-inch, because it's just bigger, it's a little bit brighter, and it's gonna. So the Prompter People 24-inch is a better one for that. It's going to feel really big to put that little micro behind it, but and then play with where the micro is. For eye contact, it will be lower than you think to make it look good. It's not right in the center. Use a little lower than center for that to be where you want it. And which one is that guy?
This right here is the 17-inch Prompter People one.
But then you added a different monitor to it.
Yeah, so that's a 24-inch Asus monitor, and then I hooked up a decimator to flip it. But that's how I have mine. And you can't see. Normally, I have a person there in the middle, and that's where the camera lens is. But it's a nice big view, and then I've got ATEM and mix pre and a little fill light underneath.
Yep, that's great.
That's the rig.
That's great. Go ahead, Jason, and then Stuart.
All right. So which iCan do you like?
Well, again, the one that I'm using is the 12-inch portable. The exact one that Brian was asking about is the 12-inch portable is the one that once I go over that, I go to Prompter People. So when I go under that, I print my own for smaller monitors. So we've used them with the little Lilliput has 1/4 inches on the back and the side. And so Lilliputs, we've actually printed ones and just slid stuff in, and then you can fold it up and put it in a backpack. And so that's a whole different one. And then we've had custom ones in boxes where we vacuum form a C920 into the glass. So you just vacuum. I think I've shown it here before, but you vacuum form it in, and then it's nice because you just pull it up and it works. But once we go to ones that we're buying externally, especially if I buy 10 of them or something like that, we get the iCan for remotes or mail outs that we're sending out to remotes. And then again, our higher quality ones are the 24s, and after 24 Prompter People ones, we go to custom. Go ahead, Stuart.
Yep, I'm about to put a link in the chat, and I would love for everybody's opinion on the ethics of sales for a prompter that's available out of the UK. Oh, and by the way, while everyone's looking, yes, Mickey, we saw you wave in the view of Guy's prompter. That one that I just put the link in is assembled from black core flute, and they charge £450 for that.
And you said it's made out of what?
Core flute.
I don't know what that
like
is.
plastic cardboard that's foldable.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. So
£450 UK.
Yeah,
I think the proper phrase is caveat emptor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Moving along to James Babbitt of San Diego, who asks, "Hi, Alex. When using the Lowell Ego LED bicolor soft light, where would you place this light, and how would you mount this light? It's an interesting looking beast."
We use the last version of this in incredible levels. So this is something that we used all the time. I think we probably bought hundreds of these. And we had them in our rental kits and sent them out, and they were great. This is a new one that's the ones we got were like 110, 120. So it's a little. What's nice about it is it's got a large surface area for the price. So for $200, you get a really large surface area. It's got a 1/4-20 in the bottom. So I believe the old one did. So you have a 1/4-20 in the bottom, so you can attach it. What's nice about this one is you go ahead, Guy.
It has a 3/8 on the bottom, and then they include a little 3/8 to 1/4-20 adapter now in the new one. I just got it.
And that's even better, because the problem with the quarter 20 is we always worried that it would shear, when we put it if we put it at an angle. So a 3/8 with a quarter 20, only thing to be careful with quarter 20 adapters, just don't tighten too much, because they'll just unwind, they'll just unwrap if you do that. Anyway, we usually sent one of those little mini, I think Cowboy whatever makes them, these little, Newer I think makes them, is like a little small tripod that you could set on your desk that was really comfortable. And then you could put them up just to get them a little high. And usually they're off to one side typically for us, to the right, slightly to the right side of the monitor. Or you can, if they have a shelf or something like that, you can set up. We don't want them at the same height as, their table. Want them up a little bit higher there, but that's what we did with them. And they were great. For us, the LumaPads are just more convenient. They're just smaller, easier to ship, easier to use. I think that the Lowells will actually look better. The new one will look better than the LumaPad. I'm not making choices on I'm looking at ease of use of mailing them out. But if I was going to spend $200, I think that the Lowell might be a better solution. And we haven't bought one yet, because it was a little outside of our price target for that scale of kit. But it could be a really, really strong solution. What we want to do is compare it against the Nanlite 68, the LumaPad that we're using, and that are the three that we kind of want to compare the three of those together and just make a qualitative decision about what we're going to use. You were going to say something, Guy?
Yeah, I'll send you one. They sent me one for demo, so I still have it. I'm done with it. If you want it, I'll ship it down to you.
We'll do a head-to-head on it, and for the show. That'd be perfect. Thanks, Guy. Bill?
Just a note, if you get those little 3/8 to quarter 20 adapters, get brass ones. Don't get the little silver ones, because the silver ones I think are made out of tinfoil and they're horrible.
Yeah, the brass ones are much better. Next question. Oh, the nice thing about them also is the ones that have there's some that have a slot in them for
a screw slot,
a screw slot that you can screw them in. Super useful. Useful for getting them in, really useful for getting them out. So anyway, look for that little screw slot. It's the little things in life. All right, next question.
100% agree with that. Okay, Tony Adamopoulos from Missouri is next. The M1 MacBook Air lacks a fan. While this might never be an issue with what I do, is there a good way or a product to cool such a device externally to minimize throttling due to heat on the rare occasions one experiences it?
The biggest thing is getting air under it. It's sitting flat on your thing. Just getting it off the, if you get a little stand for it or whatever, just getting it off the off your table or desk. Especially if you work at. I noticed how much it made a difference if I worked in bed, like watching TV, and I had it on my comforter. That is a disaster. Like, you do not do that. Like, I just couldn't figure out why I was so unhappy, and then I realized that was dumbest thing I've ever done. That was years ago, but I just realized it was just the fans are just raging. Like, oh my gosh, you're killing me. Go ahead, Roscoe.
Metal conducts metal, so if you can put it on something large metal, like a large metal desk, it will take that heat right out of the bottom of the machine.
Someone needs to build like a big metal fan, like fins on the back that you just kind of like a case, but like a half inch of fins on the back. I bet you that would do really, really well. It'd be weird, but it would be cool. Anyway, next question.
Should make them look like Cadillac fans.
Yeah, exactly.
We're moving on to Stan Chan of Roseville. Would there be a market for an ATEM mini-like device that streams to any cloud to process live streams? An affordable mashup of an ATEM and an AWS Elemental?
Well, you can do that now. I mean, you can. I mean, the ATEM will do RTMP to AWS, and then you just use that as an input and pass it out to all the things. You don't have to stream from the AWS. You don't have to stream from only to YouTube. You can just do an RTMP raw stream to AWS from your ATEM Mini. Now you have AWS. You can do all the things that it does, or restream. You can stream from the ATEM Mini to restream or to Vidyard, or all those things are possible. So it's there. Yeah, go ahead, Beju.
Yeah, there are some devices like the KiloView which can do RTMP as well as SRT as well, so they can do that same thing. They don't have Zixi, obviously, but like if you
neither does the ATEM.
Yeah. So it's a nice option as well. We're looking at getting a couple of them for testing to see for using it for linking cross sites, especially.
I'm experimenting with I'm getting pretty close to having. I just probably gonna have a bunch of cameras laying around, so I'm getting close to like trying to build the perfect little mini kit. And for me, the perfect little mini kit is going to be the ATEM, but with ATEM Pro, because I need the multi-view. But with like 3 of the 6Ks, you know, there, computer input for some graphics, elemental link, you know, like how do I like get this all kind of set up, and how do I install it in 1510? So you just kind of open it up, have a little thing that you kind of work with and plug things in on the outside. So it's a little side project that I'm working on. But for me, the big thing for mini ultra portable kits is 2 people, 2 Pelican case 1510s, 2 backpacks. You know, like how do I, because that means that people can check they can carry on everything that they need and check their clothes. They can buy clothes if they lose them. Anyway, next question.
Heard you, Ken. And moving on to Jason Bass in Albuquerque and the panel. And this is a weird little curveball question in the middle of this. This Thanksgiving, I'm wondering if the panel knows anything about reverse osmosis water softeners. I'm starting to do my homework.
It got some
I
votes
know
too.
when I'm out of my element. Any recommendations?
I love that this got votes.
This is great. All right, good. John, Paul, then Roscoe.
Is this a water softener or is it just for drinking water, Jason?
Water softener, like whole home.
Oh yeah, no, I have a reverse osmosis drinking water machine. It's fantastic.
Paul.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got several because I've got a bunch of different houses, and they're great. They're slow.
What
Of course, you have multiple water softeners.
Well, I have multiple kitchens. That's why I have 4 kitchens.
That's why you need so many mics. Got lots of houses. You gotta have them everywhere.
I can't recommend a brand, but Home Depot has them. We found a great water guy who installs them. They're tricky to install. I recommend an installer. They're slow, but you can fill up like a 5-gallon jug in about 20 minutes or so. And that's about the rate they go. And they really clean up the water. They take the particles per million way down to about 6 from way higher, about 200 or 300 down to 6 particles per million. And you can get a little device that also measures the ppm or particles per million that you can test your water with.
This is great. Roscoe and then Sky, then we'll move on.
Is the issue calcium, sulfur, or iron?
It's insanely hard water. I'm going to guess that it's calcium.
Oh, calcium actually makes the water taste good. So I don't know.
Not this much calcium.
Okay. It's clogging up
Like
all
dissolving
the
Tums in
fixtures.
Yeah, it's clogging the pipes.
Culligan.
Sky.
Yeah, Culligan. I lived in Ventura, California, so Roscoe would know out there. It's very hard water, right? The sea level's just like 10 feet down. The water table. So there was also something about the amount of water that was not wasted, but transferred out. And so I remember when we were low on water in California, they didn't like that. So I don't know what that means to you.
Next question.
Moving on to Phil Reed of West Lafayette, Indiana. When recording either in the studio or in the wild, I use wireless mics and earbuds in the wild. How do I tell if you are hearing the people from the earbuds or the actual sound from your subject? I want to make sure I'm recording, not just listening to the subject. Thanks.
The most common thing is just, you hear this a lot. Is that what you're trying to do? Is just have them scratch the mic? Scratch them, that's the... Is that what we're trying to do? Is identify them? Go ahead. Is that the question? If you're trying to hear the earbuds or the actual sound from the subject.
Not really.
Ahead,
I think
Mickey.
he's talking about, maybe isolation, maybe moving to closed cell cans instead of earbuds. If the earbuds are leaking too much and you're not getting a firm seal, maybe that's what he's talking about.
Go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Phil is talking about. Like, you want to get isolation in your monitoring. Like, if typically for productions, you'd like to most of the time use over the ear headphones, so you get the nice seal there. When I'm working in more uncontrolled environments, I like using my in ears because I definitely get the better seal. And then if like in very, very loud, like industrial situations, you could get like Remote Audio makes a modified Sony 7506 that are put in what do you call this? Those cans at these.
Aviation headsets.
Yeah, in construction sites, I think they call it the HN high noise HN 7506, and that's from Remote Audio.
And I often use in-ear, whether they're, if I'm listening to those, I use in-ear, and then I put big muffs on over top of them. So if I'm working in a concert environment or whatever, and the muffs themselves don't have any electronics in them, they're just designed to lower my external noise by as much as absolutely possible, and then my in-ear is lowered even further, and then I have it all on top of that. That for me works pretty well as far as cutting. You know, the muffs can cut, I think, 70 dB or something like that, and then the in-ears will cut another. You know, it knocks it down pretty low. I'm only hearing. Of course, I can't hear anything else at that point. like I can't. You are completely separated from everything else. Go ahead, Bill, and then Guy.
And that's what I was actually going to speak to. If you're out shooting on location and you're near a road or something like that, for a moment, I'll go inside both cans and try to separate myself to hear about the sound. And I always take my right ear off and just leave it up on my head because I want to be aware of traffic or people screaming, "Look out," and things like that. So there's a safety from completely locking yourself away from your environment that you have to pay attention to.
Yeah. Guy?
Yeah, same thing. I use the Sennheiser $99 little in-ear monitors, and they really seal out the outside world. And then if I'm on a shoot, I'm going to pop open my Wingman app on the iPad and just kind of set it off to the side. And then I'm watching that just every once in a while just to glance over and make sure. And, I always start with fresh batteries in my wireless. I make sure that that's not going to be the issue. But if it's like getting hits or something like that, I want to hear the mix in my ears. So,
Jason?
Yeah, +1 on the Sennheisers. They're cheap and they're fantastic.
Yep. Next question.
Moving on to our second to last question of the day. James Babbitt in San Diego says, thank you, Alex and panelists and everyone for bringing office hours to life. It's a joy to see and participate. So it is a pure thank you. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of people out there thinking that today on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question.
And the last question is today, Hugo from Portugal. Regarding Atmos, is there a point where there could be too many speakers and where they will start to blur the sound, scene, or rendering because of incorrect placement or sensitivity?
It's not the number of speakers. Oh, I'll let Mickey talk to it.
Kind of putting me on the spot, but I think in terms of not having a proper image reproduction of the sound image, that can be true with any channel configuration, even down to stereo. Even if you have two speakers and one speaker is like right dead center and the other one is to your right, that would also give you a wrong reproduction of the image. So it's not only true with Atmos; it could be with anything stereo and up.
To Mickey's point, it's clear it is a function of calibration. With Atmos, it's just a function of calibration. There's no number of speakers because it is paying attention to those elements. Where am I putting those things in space? Now the bed is a little different because you are kind of pointing it to different areas and so on and so forth. But obviously you might get complicated, but you got to remember that like Atmos Cinema. There's a lot of speakers in those, a lot more speakers than you're putting in your living room are getting put into theaters. So, but it's just a matter of tuning it to make sure that they're really where they need to be and everything else. In a theater, they're spending a lot of time on that. And so you have to, I think, spend an equal amount of time. And you also have to think about the reflections in the room that you're doing it in, because that's, it's not just where the speakers are, it's what kind of walls do you have and what's on those walls and what's the rest of the, all of those things have to be kind of thought about, in that process. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, +1 on the reflections. That gets very complicated when you're trying to treat any space. More is not better. That's true in just about everything, including Atmos. What's going to matter a lot is completely symmetrical placement. And I would say as you go up in the number of speakers, you should be using more and more precise drivers because they're going to have more accurate calibration and tolerances more accurate tolerances coming out of the factory.
And I will tell you that it's an expensive game to start playing with Atmos at home. You can get started with it with a sound bar, there is no limit. Like I have in our office, we have an Atmos vision room because we're doing so much, work in that area. So we have like a room that you go into and you can watch stuff and listen to it and everything else. And when you first turn on 10 speakers, you're like, this is amazing. Now it feels a little sparse. I'm like, I could add another 6 speakers. And the problem is I'm now, we're going to hopefully bring you guys into the room in the near future. But I'm working in a room that has a lot that has 80 speakers in it, and or not 80, 70 or somewhere in that range. It's a lot of speakers, and then you go home, and then it really feels sparse. And so there's so you just have to. It's one of those things like cameras and like all kinds of things that if you really get into it, you just keep scaling. So I'm just warning you that it's an addiction that can get really. Fortunately, it doesn't do as much damage to your body as other addictions, but it could be just as expensive as some higher end addictions. I just think I could have this be just a little bit better. So you just got to pick your poisons there. Anyway, but what I will say is that we also have I also have a sound bar and I have other things, and just I will say that I've been listening a lot to stereo versus Atmos, like on things like Tidal, and wow, like I'm just getting used to it. Like stereo sounds so flat, like just so flat. And just in my AirPods, my AirPod Pros, just in there, the presence of the singer where they sit, and hearing stuff around it. And I know that I know it's a cheat. I know they're just using phasing and all kinds of timing and everything else to make that work, but it's slick. And I will say that when you get used to it, it's worth playing with, and it's worth having an app, look for sound bars and everything else, because they do a really good job. They do 70-80%, I would say, of a discrete system. But I will say that it is the future, I think. And that's why we're going to spend more time on, and we're going to lean on Mickey more and spend more time talking about surround and everything else to figure stuff out and bring some folks in, because I think it's worth us knowing how to make it. And again, because of the AirPod Pros, because of the HomePods, because of the sound bars becoming more prevalent, I think more and more consumers are going to be, discerning consumers are going to be using these platforms. And I think as media professionals, we want to get good at. Right now, it's not as important. A year or two from now, it's going to be super important. And I think that it's important for us to get into it now so that it's much easier to learn things when you can learn them slowly, and we can all talk about it and figure it out and experiment and make mistakes and stuff like that while it's still moving slowly. So anyway, all right. So thank you. A great Thanksgiving morning. We've all started it off, or a night for some of all of you. And again, just appreciate everybody here. It's really fun to have all of you here and have this conversation, and it's completely effortless and fun for me to get up. And we're going to try this thing tomorrow morning where we get up even earlier, or I get up any earlier, and we do this little room thing. So take a look at your emails if you want to register for that, and we'll see how it goes. I'm not making any promises, so we'll just see how 3 days go. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to open up these meeting rooms and see if they work. It may not work tomorrow at all. I'm just letting you know, we've never done it before. I don't know what I'm doing. So we're just going to try it and turn it on. So we'll see how it goes. All right. Everybody have a great day, great evening, great night. And we'll see you all, or many of you.
Thanks
tomorrow.
to my wife, Linda, who lets me get up and rattle around at 4:30 every morning.
Yeah, that goes for many of us.
Many people on the panel can relate to that.
Absolutely. All right.